This is the Cliff Yates Show. Personal growth, motivation, inspiration, and philosophies for a great life.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Cliff Yates Show podcast. You are in the right place. Policing and life after the badge. That's this episode. I'm glad you're here. We're actually going live on YouTube also. So if you're listening on the playback, one of the podcast platforms, I also filmed this on the YouTube channel. Go on over there, check it out. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you're listening on one of the podcast platforms, hey, follow, subscribe, whatever you need to do. Comment, leave a review. It helps the computer know that we should show it to more people who are interested in these kinds of things. So I am retired LA County Sheriff Sergeant Cliff Yates, 35 years in police work prior to retiring in 2013. Wow, it's been that long. Since, what would that be, like 12 years I've been retired from law enforcement. But, you know, it's still a great profession. There are still a lot of people that want to get into it for some unknown reason. No, I'm sure it's because they want to serve, protect, and be a part of a tradition of service. And still here I am in the cottage, in the upstate studio, and things are warming up. I think it got up to 52 degrees today. So no fire today. We didn't need it. We are so balmy at 52, we don't need a fire. But we are live on YouTube as we also record this for the podcast platform. So if you're watching live, and you can leave a comment and I will address it. So throw in your questions. If not, I have a bunch of questions that were asked to me on my website and my email, cliff@cliffyates.com. And as I said, I retired from the LA County Sheriff's Department after 30 years of service, retired at the rank of sergeant. I didn't promote until 10 years prior to retiring. I loved working patrol. I loved street patrol. I loved it even in my previous department, which was upstate New York. I worked 5 years upstate New York, the Livingston County Sheriff's Department out of Geneseo, New York. So a shout out to all my brothers and sisters from my New York crime family. When I say crime family, I mean crime fighting family. And someone would argue on the opposite side, but no, we were a crime fighting service, as we all are in law enforcement. So if you have any questions about police work, if I have any of my police brothers and sisters who want to make a comment here live, please throw it in the chat and I will address it. Otherwise, I will go to my questions about police work that I got via my email address and my website. So thank you very much for the questions. So if I see a chat come through, I will address it if I see it. I got my chat window up big in here so I can see it through my eyes. Let me go to the first question. Can you share a memorable moment that had a significant impact on your life? One thing, all police officers are going to be exposed, sometimes on a regular basis, to tragedy. And that's because that's when we're going to get called, when people are a victim of a crime, victim of traffic accidents, victims of, or just involved in some kind of tragedy or horrific, chaotic situation where they need the police. Otherwise, they're not going to call. So if everything's going good, Thanksgiving Day, no one's calling the police. Let's just call the police and maybe have them show up for a meal. Well, I mean, some people do that on Thanksgiving. But in most cases, you are not going to be called unless there's a problem. And so we're going to be exposed to a lot of tragedy. So when I get this question, can you share a memorable moment that had a significant impact on your life? I'm thinking of about 25 different instances, but there is one that really had an impact on my life, and it was really a negative thing. I was working Livingston County Sheriff's Department in upstate New York, so this would have been over 40 years ago, and I received a call of a person hit by a car at the Canisius Drive-In. And it was dispatched to me, and also the fire rescue was dispatched to the call. And unlike the LA Sheriff's Department, or a bigger agency, some call like that might get you a backup car or at least a couple other vehicles might swing by to see if you need any help with the situation. But upstate New York, in the 70s, busy Friday night, Livingston County, very rural area. Well, we probably had only on that Friday night maybe 3-4 cars working anyways, 500 square miles, and I was working the east side, village of Livonia, where the Canisius Drive-In was. So there's the call. Someone hit by a car at the Canisius Drive-In, and I pulled into the drive-in, and it was really a surreal environment when I pulled in. There was no movie on the screen, and everybody was standing by their cars in the drive-in. It was still full. Everybody was in their rows, and no one was moving, and it was eerily silent. And I was being waved over to the roadway in between one of the rows, right near the concession stand, and they were waving me over frantically to a single car right in the center, facing towards me as I drove up, and people were yelling, over here, over here. And when I got near the car, the lady behind the wheel was yelling over and over again, I hit a boy, I hit a boy, I hit him, I hit him. Oh, she said, I ran over a boy, I ran over a boy, I ran over a boy. And so they told me the boy that got ran over is underneath the car. So I got down on my hands and knees, looked under the car, and it was a terrible sight. And obviously the boys who got ran over was mangled into the universal joint with his clothing. I only know that apart from him was his black plastic watch. And I don't know, I'll never forget that. So I grabbed that, put it in my pocket. And when I came back up from underneath the car, then I saw the fire department had arrived and they were coming over. And so they got down and they could see that the fire captain had to pronounce the young boy dead there on the scene, at the scene. And the young lady was just keep repeating, I ran over a boy. She could really not be consoled. And the fire department was trying to help her out. And then I was trying to get from witnesses what happened. And I was able to eventually piece together but I could never get the sights and sounds of that eerie night out of my head. Every once in a while, I still think about it. Matter of fact, I thought about it as soon as I got this question. As soon as I read it tonight, that was a thing that came to my mind. And it was just a tragic situation. What happened was a family had a guest, a boy 12 years old, the victim here, 12 years old. He was visiting from Virginia, visiting this family and their 3 boys. So I had the 4 boys, about the same age, 12, 13 years old. And they had the visitor from Virginia visiting there in upstate New York. And their neighbor, a lady, a single mom, and she had 2 boys. And so the neighbor who had the visitor from Virginia, they asked this lady if she would like to go to the drive-in with them. You can follow us in your car, and then we'll park next to each other, and we're going to have a great time. All the boys can hang out and play together and talk and just have fun. And she said, that sounds great. So they went to the drive-in, and they parked side by side. And the family who had the visitor from Virginia, that young boy, they were in a van. And the neighbor lady, she had her 2 boys in her car. And during the movie, the kids were in and out of the van, and 2 boys, one boy from the lady neighbor who had the car, one of her boys, and then the visiting boy, they had set up chairs or they had laid down in blankets in front of her car. And so what happened when the movie was over, you're already getting a visual what happened. When the movie was over, the boys are running around and the people in the van are getting their boys in. And the neighbor lady, she got her 2 boys in the car. And so she thought she was good to go because her sons are in there. See you later. And she went forward and not realizing that the visiting boy from Virginia had fallen asleep in front of her car on a blanket underneath the car. And when she rolled over him, he got caught in the universal joint of the vehicle, dragged him onto the roadway, and then people started running next to her car, banging on her window. Stop, stop. You ran over a boy. Stop, stop. And that's when she stopped. And then we were called 911. And then I arrive, and this is the scene. And so after getting all the witnesses and statements, and I ended up, I don't think nobody ever did come and give me any assistance on this call. And I just remember always remembering that black watch. And I went, and after everything was filtered out at the scene, then I ended up back at the station, and I had to call the Virginia State Police. And we had to send them to the house to make notification that their son had been killed in this accident. And I just remember while I was making the call, I had the boy's black watch, which I had taken out of my pocket. And so, yeah, that was always, that just had a big impact on my life, that call. And just, there are many calls that police officers over a 25, 30, 35, 40-year career, they're going to have numerous calls, tragedy calls that are going to stick in your mind like that. And so that was question number one. Okay, let's go to the next question. What inspires you to become a police officer, and how has your perspective changed since you started? All right, what inspired you to become a police officer, and how has your perspective changed since you started? Well, of course, it's changed quite a bit it's been 43 some years now. I did a 35-year career and been retired for 12. So 45, 47. So a lot of years passed from the beginning until now, and things have changed in police part. What inspired me to be a police officer was, and I talk about it in my book, check it out, Deputy. It's on Amazon. You can get it in paperback, or you can get it in Audible, Kindle version. And wherever you want to get it, you can get it. But go to Amazon. It's called Deputy by me, Cliff Yates. And it really just chronicles my career going from upstate New York, a very small, tiny sheriff's department in rural upstate New York, to the LA County Sheriff's Department, the largest sheriff's department in the world. And so what inspired me was my dad was chief of police of the small village where I grew up. And he was the chief of police. So in a small town, he was always, he brought the car home. He was the chief. The police radio was in the hallway. So 24/7, he was available. Small village police. People were calling him all the time for problems, and fighting with city council and the mayor, and, dealing with his officers that he was, putting out there on patrol. But a tiny, I think at most he may have had at one time 3 full-time officers and maybe 3-4 part-time officers. And so a very tiny department. But he had also worked at the Livingston County Sheriff's Department where I started my career. And he ended up going to the Grease Police Department right outside of Rochester, New York. So and my uncle was a police officer in Geneseo, New York. Another small village, but a college town. They swelled to about 20,000 during the college season when school's in session. And so I just remember all those times that my dad had fellow police officers over to the house for coffee, and then just them telling just the funniest stories, and each one had a story and constantly changing. Sometimes they repeat the stories, but a lot of times they had new stories because things, every day is a new challenge. New stories come up because new things happen to you, and that they would banter over cups of coffee at the kitchen table. Kitchen table conversations were just amazing. And to watch, everybody loved their job. It was fun. They enjoyed it. They never complained about it. And so seeing that, I think, wow, that's a job you can go to. You make good money, but no one was concerned with the money. No one talked about the money. Benefits, they talk, you have good benefits, but a job where people are having fun. They were looking forward to going to work and then getting together later, over a cup of coffee to tell these stories, funny stories, just laughing. And, sometimes they're poignant stories where people have tears, but just, police stories. And that's kind of all I knew after graduating high school. And so I just started going to college for Monterey Community College for criminal justice. And at the age of 20, I started working part-time for the Livingston County Sheriff's Department and would ride along 2-3 nights a week. And then eventually I got certified to work by myself as a part-time reserve deputy sheriff. And then at 21 years of age, I got hired full-time with the Livingston County Sheriff's Department. And then I was always inspired by movies and books, TV shows to go to a large metropolitan department. And I always wanted to go to New York City. Some of you know the story. I applied at the NYPD, and I was applying all over the country for a while. After 5 years of service with Livingston County, I said, I want to work for a large department. So I ended up getting hired in 1983 to the LA County Sheriff's Department. But that was my inspiration. And it was a great career with the LA County Sheriff's Department and Livingston County also. And each one was a stepping stone to the other. So, and my perspective has changed just because things are different. Things change in society and culture, and things are different from when I worked. I mean, I never had to wear a body cam. And when I was working near the last 10 years, they were just coming with dash cams. So police work has changed. Let's go on to the next question. We're talking police work and life after the badge, everybody. How do you handle the stress and emotional challenges that come with police work? Well, years ago, they were really promoting that you have outside interest other than police work. They wanted you involved in some kind of communities or activities that were different than police work, so you didn't lose sight that you were part of the community, and that you were always in touch with the community that you served, or at least you were always constantly reminded you were there to serve the rest of us, that you were part of the bigger body of community. And also it helped with stress and getting back to reality, how things were. Not everybody's a criminal. Not everybody's out to get you. Not everybody's out to victimize people. Not everybody's out to commit a crime. And remembering the good people that we're serving and that we're taking criminals to jail to protect. And so they always promoted that. And then in recent years, we've had a spike in first responder suicides. We have a spike in, lately we just had tragic in my LA County Sheriff's Department. A young man, 21, was killed in a crash after working a double shift. We know that the LA Sheriff's Department alone is thousands of positions down where deputies have to work forced overtime. Maybe 3-4 times a week, they have to sign up for 3-4 shifts for a week of overtime. And if you don't sign up for that minimum amount of overtime, then they draft you. They force you when they need it. When they need a body, don't get dressed. You're not going home. You're staying here. And you're either working the jail or you're working patrol by force. They call it being drafted. Tired or not, they draft you. And it's to a very dangerous level. And so when you don't have time off with friends, family, time off to recharge, recuperate, and when you're very, very tired, it's almost like being under the influence of alcohol. You make mistakes. You're not sharp on your game. You could have an accident and die in a car crash because you're falling asleep at the wheel. And when you work in the LA County Sheriff's Department, you're at a new assignment like this young man was. You're never going to be assigned except by chance anywhere near your home. So your commute could be 50, 60 miles away with the LA County Sheriff's Department because of the size of the county and the distances from the different jail units and patrol units for that matter. So that can create a lot of stress. So to handle that stress, myself, I stayed very active working out, weight training, very active. I wasn't a runner per se, but involved in sports, but mostly working out with weights, resistance. I was always in a bowling league. I actually got my PBA card while I was a deputy sheriff, my Pro Bowlers Association card. Competed in the U.S. Open of Bowling in Fountain Valley, California, I think in 2000. And so that's how I handled the stress, through outside activities, through exercise, working out, having goals outside the department or goals within the department, and having just a community of, a close-knit circle of friends and family. And I always had support from my wife on the LA County Sheriff's Department. And so it's good to have the supportive team that you need to have. And that's how you can handle the stress and emotional challenges that come with police work. Next question, what is a common misconception people have about police officers or police work? Well, you see it after, and I don't know when, I was prompted to write one of my books, The Truth About Cops and Why You Should Trust Them, because of the way the fake news started putting out fake news items about the police. They would take a little bit of truth and then, try to cause a division within the communities with race and painting departments as systemically racist. And LA County Sheriff's Department went way out of their way to try to make sure a couple things were in place. Number one, they tried to make sure that the department's demographics matched the demographics of the county that we served, LA County. And they did the LA Sheriff's Department at the time I was in recruitment, they were 60-some% Hispanic. They were maybe 15, 16% white, maybe 12% black, and then a small percentage of this, that, or the other. But predominantly Hispanic, not white. And so, LA County is a diverse county, like California is very diverse. And so the department was very diverse also, and definitely went out of their way trying not to be systemically racist. There was a racism there in the Sheriff's Department. Yes, you would have incidents come up, but they went out of their way for cultural diversity training. We, not only as a deputy, but also as a sergeant, had to go to the Museum of Tolerance to learn about the Holocaust and those kind of things, and definitely cultural diversity with, African-American leaders would come and talk to us and go forward in that training. And we would just be trained in several different cultures and how to make sure that we weren't disrespecting them by accident. And so we had continuous training in that regard. But the misconception of these cops are out to hunt down minorities and shoot minorities is a misconception. The one thing that officers are very concerned with, top of the line, is making a traffic stop, is that they survive it, that they're not going to get shot and killed on the traffic stop. They don't know who they're stopping. You know who they're stopping. You know that you're just a student coming back from class. The people stopping you do have no idea. You could be someone who just committed a bank robbery, who's on parole, who has a loaded firearm under your left leg, and you have already vowed never to go back to prison again. You will shoot the first cop that tries to stop you. And so they have to be concerned with those kind of thoughts, not out there trying to put minorities in jail or hunting. Misconceptions that have been put out really because of the propagandized information that the news media will put out, unfortunately, and it paints a picture that's not accurate, which can cause further violence involving police contact. The great number of contacts in police, the millions and millions and millions of contacts all day, every day, and there's no violent confrontation. But when there is one, it's very much spotlighted, and the picture it paints is not always very accurate. But of course, with the advent of cameras, we're seeing police officers doing great jobs, great work, and at the same time, we're seeing great acts of misconduct. Great acts. No, we're seeing a horrific act of misconduct that is greatly horrific, and so that's coming to light, which is good. So that's one thing good about the cameras. It protects officers, and it also reveals misconduct. Let's go on to the next question. Can you describe a typical day on the job? Is there such a thing as a typical day? Sometimes there is, and sometimes there isn't. Police work really can be, it could be hours and hours of really monotonous things, interrupted by moments of unbelievable chaos, energy, and excitement. And it goes back and forth. Now, in a 30-minute TV show, they're not going to show 28 minutes of boredom and then 2 minutes of excitement. They're going to cut things down to show the excitement. So, you got cops going along, riding along with police officers, and sometimes they'll switch. I mean, you got police live. They'll switch around to wherever something is happening. But there can be a typical days depending on your job. Now, the sheriff's department has 400 jobs in LA County, so you could be a bailiff. Now, you might work a court where you're a bailiff to a judge, and it is a civil court, not even criminal. And I'm sure there's probably months where you have typical days where it's pretty much the same every day. You go to a patrol environment, probably not going to be that way, for sure. That's one thing great about patrol is probably you might have a couple days in a row, maybe 3, 4, 5, maybe, hey, man, nothing's happened in quite a while. But definitely maybe not exciting, but different days. And nothing's ever usually typical in a patrol day. And sometimes it can get that way, and you got to remind yourself, don't get caught in that trap, in that mind trap. This is just another typical day. Nothing's happened for a week, so today's going to be just like yesterday. And that kind of thinking can get you killed, so you have to stay sharp. Good question. How do you balance enforcing the law with showing empathy and understanding in difficult situations? Well, one reason why there's animosity towards police officers because no other job has such discretionary power. And whenever you have discretionary power, you're going to have animosity from the general public, as it was told to me by one of my coworkers, and he explained it very well in that manner. And that has to be true. So now I don't know how it goes when everybody has their body cam recording all the time, but in my day, back in the day, I mean, you definitely had you had the option of discretion. Many times, and I mean many, many times, I let a lot of people go. So you don't always write the ticket. You don't always make the arrest. And sometimes you use discretion, depending specifically if you're in a very high crime area. It's a busy night, and you don't want to get tied up in something very minor, a misdemeanor type crime. You may let something go that would normally be arrested or at least given a citation. But many times, just because it's so rare when you pull somebody over that they say, you know what, I know I was going about 85. I deserve a ticket. So I understand, officer, what you have to do. And that happened to me quite a few times. And I would say 100% of the time, I let those people go because that was rare for anybody to say that. So at the time, we had big discretion. Now, I don't know if officers today, and if you know in the chat, let me know. Hey, we're gathering some people there. Let me know where you're watching from. Give me a hi and a question here on the chat, and I'll put it up. But we had great discretion. But I don't know with body cams if they have discretion. Or they could get in trouble because they stopped somebody for a clear violation and they didn't write the ticket or make the arrest. If that would be a problem. I'd like to know that because I just didn't have to deal with that. In my day, we were given quite a range of discretionary choice whether we're going to write a ticket or not or make the arrest. And without having to worry about oversight from someone saying, did you let this person go? We were kind of given the option as to whether we, at least on minor offenses or minor traffic violations, whether we wrote the ticket or made the arrest. Okay, well, that's 7. Let's go on to the next question. What kind of training do police officers undergo to prepare for the challenges of the job? Well, I went through 2 academies. The first academy was in upstate New York, Livingston County Sheriff's Department. And that was it was classroom oriented. It was to get enough classroom instructions. I think it's different now, to get the hours of instructions to qualify for certification by the New York State Municipal Police Training Council. You could be certified as a police officer. Now, when I went to the LA County Sheriff's Department, and we're talking about, at the time, it was a high stress academy. And it was 18 weeks full time. Of course, you're getting paid full-time money while you're in the academy. But I mean, for me, it was very, very tough and challenging, and it was meant to be that way, because and if someone's going to break under pressure, if someone's going to not make good decisions, if someone is not going to get along with others very well, what better time to tell than in the academy, when it's under a controlled situation, where it's under a situation where the general public and or fellow officers aren't going to be in danger. So the academy instructors tried to, not only are they instructing and teaching, but they're also trying to weed out maybe people who shouldn't be in the job, even though they've made it through this far in the process. When it comes down to boots on the ground in the academy, some people find out on their own, you know what, this is not for me, and they self wash themselves out. So they just resign, or they might get pressured to, or they don't make it academically. That's one way. So there's a couple different ways you could not make it in the academy. One way is academically. They make the academics pretty tough. Another way would be shooting. Obviously, if you can't qualify, and they work with you the best they can. They've already, now once you're in the academy, a lot of money has been spent to try to make you a valid asset of the department. So they're going to work with you shooting wise. If that's the trouble you're having, that's just a skill that can be taught. And the range instructors are tremendous teachers in that regard. So they can you can get remediated in your training, and they'll teach you how to shoot. And a lot of people ended up becoming good shots. When they were about to fail, they received remedial training on the range and became sharpshooters. But that's a time when they work you pretty hard. They try to create a little bit as much as possible, within the constraints of the law of working hours. They try to cause sleep deprivation, sensory overload. They're piling a lot on you all at once for a long day. They know it's tough, and then to see how you react in those stressful situations. And then you're evaluated also by your fellow cadets or trainees in the academy. And sometimes the name they give to people in the academy change. Sometimes it's recruits, cadets, trainees. So you evaluate each other. So if someone's really kind of a lone wolf and not getting along with others, you're in a platoon where your platoon mates are writing an evaluation on you, and the instructors get to see that, to see how you're interacting with other people. But that's how that's the kind of training that they give you. There's going to be physical training constantly to make sure that when you graduate, you're of a certain physical standard, strength and cardiovascular health. And so you get training in that. You get nutrition training, you get weight training, you get some boxing training, so physical defense training, and you get training with all the defensive weapons you're going to be using, your side-handled baton, your handcuffs. You're trained in how to use your handcuffs and handcuff people efficiently. Then you're getting academic training on the law. What are the laws that you're probably going to use, and knowing what the elements of a crime are, so that you are not making illegal arrest. You know what probable cause is, and you know the laws of arrest, and you learn laws that you're probably going to be using, and where to find out what the law would be if you didn't know it offhand. So there's all those things, all those trainings, and then the firearms training, as I talked about. But that's the training that you go through for the challenge of the job. Next question. What kind of training do police officers undergo? I already read that. Okay. How do you stay informed and adapt to changes in laws and community expectations? Expectations. Okay. Well, every day if you're in patrol, before you go out to patrol, you have a briefing, usually by the sergeant. So when I was a sergeant, I had a briefing book. And so if there's changes in law, sometimes case law would come down. The Supreme Court would make a case that would affect law enforcement or police officers doing their jobs. And so that would be briefed. And it'd be very important that everybody takes notice of the change in laws, ordinances, or otherwise. And in many cases, maybe they may have to sign or initial that they had received notice of these changes. So if there are changes in laws, ordinances, you get notified of that. Sometimes you discuss them. You discuss how to handle the changes in those laws and those ordinances, and community expectations. That's easy because you're a lot of times you're going to have community-oriented policing officers. You're going to have neighborhood watch officers. You're going to have sometimes neighborhoods will have neighborhood watches, and they'll liaison with a police officer who will come in, and they'll talk with these people about, what is the problem. In community-oriented policing, we're dealing with what is the community or neighborhood, what is their quality of life situation right now? Is it the loud music from this one person who just moved in? Is it the noise from this building? What is the quality of life issue that is coming to light that maybe the police can help with? And it's not always a police matter, but police have access to all community resources, and they can put people together with the proper resources to try to alleviate anything that's causing a diminishment in their quality of life in their neighborhood. And when you have community-oriented policing, and we have cops who are liaisoning with neighbors and neighborhood watch groups, then those cops bring that back to the regular patrol and the detectives. Hey, this is what's going on in this neighborhood. They really need a focus here. We really need extra patrol around here. This is what's going on. It's affecting the community. And so we need to focus on that. And so the people who have access to the community are always communicating that with the regular patrol people and people at the station. We had cities in LA County that contracted with the sheriff's department. So we had, the command staff would go to city council meetings, and if there was problems or issues, they would, or maybe even questions about what the police were doing, then that person from the command staff would advise that person, or tell them they would get back to them, and they would investigate what the issue was. But if there was a community issue that the police could have an active role in solving, then that command staff member for that city who was under the contract would bring that to the field bosses and the deputies through briefings to say, hey, we need to handle this. This is coming up in the city council meetings. And so there's a constant communication between those who us were serving and those who we served. And that's what made successful policing, was the communication between the two. But it does happen, and there are things in place so that it does happen, unless that breaks down, and sometimes it does. All right, so we stay informed. All right. What are some of the rewarding aspects of being a police officer? There are so many rewarding aspects of being a cop. It's probably hard to even list them all. You're always in a position where you can actually make a difference in people's lives. You can actually go out of your way. You can go above and beyond what you're minimally required to do to help people. Nothing stops you from, and you have the freedom, to take action, to jump out of your patrol car and help that elderly lady across the street. And 2 minutes later, you might be in a gunfight for a bank robbery, but you have discretion to help people. You might want to pull over and help a lady, putting groceries in her car or changing a tire. So you can, and then if you, when you recover stolen cars and you return that property to the owner, it's very fulfilling. When you catch a burglar and return stolen items to the victim, when you prevent a burglary, when you arrest a burglar and you prevent this person from victimizing other people, it's very rewarding. You save a life medically. You perform the Heimlich or mouth-to-mouth or first aid of any kind, and you save a life someone who was drowning and you were able to save their life. You know, you're trained in these life-saving techniques. And when you can do that, that's very rewarding. So it goes really, it's on a daily basis. You're going to be put in a position where you have the opportunity to, perform a service above and beyond. And it'll be very, very rewarding. And the amount of opportunities you're going to have is going to be endless in my experience. All right, let's see. We're down to number 10. What role does community policing play in work, and how do you engage in the community? Well, I kind of touched on that already. You have sometimes neighborhood watch groups who they liaison with someone from the station, and you'll have, sometimes you might have, we had in the LA Sheriff's Department, we had a civilian academy where we had members of the community would join up for the civilian academy, and after their long days at work in their regular jobs, they would come to the Sheriff's Department station that was holding the civilian academy, and they would get a tour of how dispatching works. And maybe they sit in dispatch for a while, and they rotate through, and they learn how the station operation works. They sit in the dispatch center, and they learn how calls come in, how they're typed in, how they go to the main dispatch center, and how police cars get those calls. They go on ride-alongs actually in the police car with an officer and see how those calls are answered and how the officer deals with and talks with the community and all aspects of the job. I mean, they have to sign a waiver in case bad things happen that we wouldn't be held accountable because, there's been situations, shooting situations, and they've had officers shot in the line of duty, and the only person that was there to call for help on that radio was a civilian ride-along. And we have video, we have tapes of people just screaming into the mic, officer needs help, officer needs help. And this was just a ride-along. And so, they're prepared and trained that this could happen. But you never know how somebody's going to handle a stressful situation like that. But that's how the department and the stations can interact with the community and vice versa. And those people end up being the biggest supporters, staunchest supporters of the police, the station in their community, because they've seen, how it's done. And then take them to the range. They take them to the range where people are get qualified and how to shoot a gun, and they take them in to the high-speed training of the police cars, and they might even take them through the obstacle course in a car, or they ride along and see how that's done. And they may be in the shooting simulator, and maybe they get to do it. They get to, they have a shoot-don't-shoot situation, and they get a hands-on for sure. A civilian academy, it was good for the people in the community and good for the department, propaganda-wise, not propaganda-wise, but community relations-wise, I should say. Not propaganda-wise. That's why, hey, be careful when you go live. You never know what you're going to say. All right, let's take one or two more questions here that was typed into me. Okay, how do you ensure your own safety and the safety of others while on duty? Listen, how you ensure your safety is make yourself the best trained, knowledgeable officer that you can be. And that's really starts with physical training. They don't have a trainer there telling you, and you're not reporting to anybody. Once you graduate from that academy, your physical strength and health is on your shoulders. You're never tested again in that. So you have to have the pride to look good in uniform and to keep yourself in physical shape so that you can defend yourself, your fellow officers, and members of the community by being in top physical condition, because that relates to your mental health, which relates to making good decisions. And that is going to benefit everybody involved to save lives and keeping people safe. Good mental decisions, which could be compromised by poor physical health, poor health habits, poor sleep habits, being overweight, out of shape is not going to help you in your mental health, which is going to relate to the decisions that could cost someone their life, whether it's you, your fellow officer, or a member of the community. So that's how you ensure the best safety. You're proficient with your equipment, and you're constantly training with it. You're training with your firearm. You're training with the tools of the trade, and you keep yourself in top physical, mental health at all times. And when you do that, you're in the best position to save, protect your life, other officers, and members of the community. Good question. Thank you. One more. Let's see what the last one is. I hope it's good because it's the last question. It's always good to leave on a good whim. On a good whim? No. It's always good to end the podcast on a win. What advice would you give to someone considering a career in law enforcement? Listen, now is the best time to join a law enforcement department. And I'll tell you why it's the best time. Number one, because departments are hurting. It's hard to recruit people to join up with the department. So now you can do your research. Okay, what is considered the best working conditions? What are the best departments who are hiring right now? And now, because almost all departments are understaffed and they need to hire good people, you have the opportunity to look around for the best that there is. You have the opportunity now to make a choice. Wait a minute, what are your benefits? What are the working conditions? How about moving around different jobs? How big is the department? Do you offer incentives for continuing education? What is the retirement? Are you are you self-sustaining retirement? Is it a state retirement? How much do you get? What about medical benefits at the retirement? And you can check all those things out before you make your decision to join the agency. So my advice is learn as much as you can about what police work really is, what you actually do, and email me. I'll have a private conversation with you. And talk to people who are already working where you think you might want to work. And talk to a lot of people. Do your research. Be an investigator to decide, is this the career for me? Do I really want to do this? And what would be the best department for me to apply to? And now, in this day and age, you have the opportunity to pick and choose. And so, because the demand for good people is high, and the amount of people who are applying is low. All right, I'm Cliff Yates, retired LA County Sheriff Sergeant, and active on the streets, and now podcaster. And I'm so happy I was able to go live with all of you. Thanks for your questions. And if you haven't already, please subscribe if you're watching on the YouTube channel. Hit that bell so you're notified when the next video comes out. And if you're listening on the replay, specifically on a podcast platform. And we're everywhere. We're on Spotify, iTunes. You can hear the podcast all over, Amazon Music. Do it, everybody. Subscribe, follow. It tells the computer, hey, people are interacting with this thing. We better show it to more people. And listen, having a positive impact on other people, no greater joy. I'm Cliff Yates. You know I love you. I'll see you in the next episode.